Good morning. It's July 4th, 2026. Today is Independence Day, and it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that this morning, take a departure from what we typically do, which is talking about real estate, wills and trusts, things of that nature. And I wanted to take a little bit of departure from that and talk about the meaning of today. My girlfriend told me this morning, she said, you ought to love today because you can talk about all this stuff and people may actually want to listen to you. I do enjoy talking about history and things of this nature. So I'm going to take a chance to do that today. Just real briefly, wanted to touch on the birth of our country, which again happened today, 250 years ago. So what did happen today, 250 years ago? 250 years ago, our founding fathers got together and decided that they wanted to declare independence from England. And what they did is they drafted a document called, of course, the Declaration of Independence. And I wanted to read a couple of passages from that declaration. I would encourage you to go online and read it yourself. I'm looking at the draft that is on the National Archives website, the transcription of it. You can find it many places, but this is a good and accurate draft. So I'm going to read, of course, this is language you've heard thousands of times through your life. We learned it all in school. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. The document then goes on to talk about grievances, things that the Crown has done to them, and I'm going to skip down a few lines and read another passage. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain, and that was King George III at the time, is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And if you read the document, it goes on to list a series of about 30 specific grievances, things like they have not been given right to trial by jury, they've had soldiers quartered in their homes, they've had soldiers hired against them and brought onto their homes and fighting against them, all kinds of things that they didn't like. They plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, on and on and on. It lists several things. And at the very end, so that's the things that they believe. That's the grievances that they've suffered. And the very last thing I want to read to you, this is what they're going to do. They've said, these are the problems that we have, and this is what we're going to do about it. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world, those are capitalized, the Supreme Judges are capital terms, of the world, for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. That was signed by all of the founding fathers. You've heard many of these names, and you can go on and look at all the names. Names like Thomas Jefferson, who actually drafted this. Thomas Jefferson came up with the first draft. It was heavily edited and revised by a group of 4 or 5 of them, and the whole group edited it. I think you can find Jefferson's original draft somewhere, and I would like to do that. I don't know if I've ever read that. But Thomas Jefferson Samuel Chase, Samuel Adams, John Adams, who went on to be President of the United States, as did Jefferson, John Hancock, Roger Sherman, on and on and on. You've heard all these names. These are what's considered the founding fathers. Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania signed it. Robert Morris, on and on and on. They adopted this document, and that started the War for Independence. You have to realize what that meant. That meant probably certain death for these guys. That put them as a mark for death by the crown. This got wind of the crown. They sent tens of thousands of troops here because England was not going to let the colonies go without a fight. And they put up a major fight. So that started the Revolutionary War. And again, that if you've read anything about the war, understand it. It was a brutal war. A lot of hand-to-hand fighting, very bloody, lots of loss of life, and really against incredible odds. The United States didn't have a navy. They didn't have a whole lot of munitions. They didn't have a whole lot of guns. They didn't have a whole lot of people. The British government did. They had historically the strongest army in the history of warfare at the time. They had a full functioning navy. That became a huge player in the war. And that went on for about 5 years. And then in 1791 at the Battle of Yorktown, we won. Charles Cornwallis of England surrendered about 7,000 troops to General Washington, and that ended the military campaign. The actual revolution didn't end until September 3rd, 1783 at the Treaty of Paris, where England and the rest of the world formally recognized the United States as a sovereign nation and independent nation. It was July 21st of 1788 when we drafted another amazing document, the Constitution of the United States. And that's another document I would encourage everybody to read. It's not long. That's really the genius of it, is how brief it is. This is a little lawyer reference book I have, but this is the Constitution. You can see here, it's about 30 pages in this little book. You can read it in about 15 or 20 minutes. It's really an amazing document. It establishes actually how our government, this nation that we have set up, is going to be governed with, of course, the 3 branches of government: the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. And it laid out how the whole government is going to be run with elections, declarations of war, on and on and on. Read this document. It's a genius document. The genius of it is so brief, and it's lasted for 250 years. It's only been amended 27 times, and the amendments are all pretty brief. And it was a few years later, in December 15th of 1791, the document was adopted in June 21st of 1788. The government actually didn't start until March 4th of 1789. That's when the actual Congress was elected, was ratified by the 9th state as required by the Article 7 of that same document. New Hampshire was the last state to adopt it. But that set up our government. And then a couple of years later, we realized, hey, there's some really important things that we didn't include in this document. Rights that citizens have, and that's the first 10 amendments, of course, called the Bill of Rights. Read that document. Read those Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, of course, it's 10 amendments. The First Amendment probably is the most important one. The right to free speech, the right to the press, the right to assembly, of course, the right to petition of grievances. Second Amendment, right to bear arms, hugely important. The Fourth Amendment, the rights against unreasonable search and seizure from the government. The Fifth Amendment, right to a jury trial, right to due process. That's a huge, huge important right that we have. And on and on and on. That document and those 10 amendments after it really established the basis of our form of government. I would encourage you to read those. The simplicity of the United States government and its inception is really amazing. That document has, again, only been amended 27 times. If you think that's not unusual, look at the Constitution of every state, of all the 50 states. They've been amended hundreds of times. The Constitution of the state of Texas gets amended every legislative session, and there are hundreds of amendments. So take a look at that. Understand how simple it is, how really amazing it is. And as my girlfriend pointed out to me this morning again, she said it's really a miracle. It has to be a God thing, because to have that form of government adopted, which did not exist at the time, on July 4th, 1776, to actually survive the war against Britain and then to last as long as it has is a miracle. And I believe she's right. That really is amazing. And the odds of that surviving its infancy, surviving as long as it had, is really amazing. That's what we're celebrating today. I wanted to talk to you very briefly about that. I love reading about this stuff, talking about this stuff, so I wanted to do it. I've spent 10 minutes with you. I don't know when you're going to watch this, but I hope you have a great July 4th. I hope you had a great July 4th if you're watching this after, and a happy birthday to the United States of America. Thank you.